I come from Orlando, Florida. That's where I grew up. And so to come to Utah on my mission, it was like a foreign country to me. A lot of people think that's funny that are from Utah just because this is home. But the mountains were all new. I wasn't used to that. And I have to say the MTC was almost like paradise. Like my memory of the MTC was almost like everything was so peaceful and like there was just angels all around. As you know, missionaries, just the spirit there was so powerful. And looking back, that was probably one of the most under-recognized highlights of my mission, was just being in MTC around all those missionaries all the time, learning the gospel, practicing teaching, and feeling the spirit so strong 24/7. It was awesome. I love the MTC. When we went to my mission field from the MTC, we just took a bus. You know, we didn't have to fly in an airplane or anything like that. We got to the mission office and I met my trainer that first day and we went tracting. So we went knocking doors and I was super nervous. I was like freaking out nervous and I didn't want to talk to anybody. And I remember he wanted me to knock on the door and introduce myself. And I was just like so scared I wouldn't do it. Like I was a little bit stubborn, and I think it made him a little bit frustrated with me because I was so scared. That first day was just scary. But after that, of course, it got better. But that was probably my most like prominent memory of when I first got to my mission, was just like super scared of everything. I had a good trainer. He tried really hard to push me out of my comfort zone. And I think that's kind of why I also hated him at the same time. But I respect him for it, you know. I think just talking to everybody when you're out on the street, not being afraid to just, oh, it's a random person walking, I'm just going to go talk to them. I don't know who they are, but I'll talk to them. That was the biggest surprise. I always thought it was just more of a, let's just teach lessons, let's knock doors and teach lessons. I didn't expect to just talk to anybody. And so that was probably the most big surprise for me. So I served my mission in Salt Lake City South from summer of 2006 to the summer of 2008. And at the time, there was about, I think, 180 missionaries in our mission. And the mission went from like the Kearns area, about 4,100 south, down to the point of the mountain, down by Draper. And then from the Oakers to the Wasatch Front. So just in that South Salt Lake area. Not a very big mission, geographically speaking. Each missionary companionship would cover 1 to 2 stakes. And that was also 1 to 2 square miles. So a very small area to be missionaries. And it was hard. Sometimes I was in areas for 4.5 months and I didn't even visit every single ward in my area in that entire time. Also, when I was there, we had a lot of Spanish-speaking missionaries. And we had 6 zones, English-speaking zones, and then overlapping those English-speaking zones, there were 2 Spanish-speaking zones. And so every English-speaking area also had a set of Spanish-speaking missionaries that covered a bigger area. So every now and then we'd run into them on the street. There was even a couple times where my area bordered the mission, and there was one time where we were knocking doors at the edge of our area, and I saw some missionaries that were from the other mission, and I was like, oh, that's weird, you know, like, they're so close but so far, you know what I mean? So that was kind of just interesting, the challenging aspects of having such a small area so close together. I think the mission's changed since then. I think they actually split the mission in half now since then, because we were baptizing between 150 to 180 baptisms per month in my mission, as a mission, completely. Our goal was to baptize weekly, and I came pretty close to that. We had about, I averaged about 2 baptisms a month, so pretty close to hitting the goal, which is always there to help you push, you know, and to do better than you would probably otherwise do. Goals are awesome. So serving your mission in Utah, there's obviously lots of members of the church already. And it's funny going door to door, half the people on the street will say, oh, everybody's members, everybody's members. There's nobody that I know of that's not a member of the church. And, you know, they'd be surprised how many non-members there actually are that don't know much about the church. So that's kind of unique to the Utah area. That's something else that kind of surprised me when I came to Utah, is that there's so many Mormon churches everywhere. Like you get up on a high hill and you can just see like chapels everywhere. And that's something I'd never seen before. that's kind of unique to Utah. In my mission, really almost everybody that I taught had heard about the church. Most of them had family members that were members of the church. They almost all knew the Joseph Smith story. So to teach the first lesson and preach about Joseph Smith receiving the first vision and the restoration of the gospel and priesthood authority was nothing new to them. So the biggest challenge was really getting them to live the gospel, just to get baptized, come to church, to get out and go to church, because most people had been to church growing up. There's a lot of part member families that we taught where the wife was a member and the husband wasn't, or vice versa, or maybe the husband and wife were both members but less active, and they had a 9-year-old that had never gotten baptized. And so we would teach that little kid about the gospel because they're technically old enough to be considered a convert. So we had a lot of part member families that we taught. And, in those situations, it was all about reactivating the whole family, get mom and dad back to church because they had once had a testimony and maybe they lost it through the struggles of life. And so just getting them to go to church, be a part of the community, get a calling, that kind of stuff was the biggest challenge. So I served in Kearns, Taylorsville, Draper, South Jordan, West Jordan.